3 weeks after the liberation of Kepler 442b, the Galactic Council chamber on Corinth Prime had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 200 different species packed the hall, their voices creating a cacophony of concern, fear, and demand for answers. Ambassador Thelwyn of the Zalathi delegation stood at the central podium, his scaled hands gripping the edges as he addressed the assembly. The rescue of his people had made him an unlikely hero. But more importantly, it had made him Earth's first official advocate in galactic politics. Honored delegates, Thelwyn began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. We stand at a crossroads in galactic history. For too long, we have lived in fear of predatory species who believed that strength gave them the right to take what they wanted. The Krugan raids, the hegemony expansions, the countless smaller acts of piracy and slavery that we've accepted as inevitable facts of life. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but Thelwyn could also sense the underlying tension. Many of the assembled delegates were more frightened of Earth's military capabilities than they were grateful for the rescue. The humans have shown us that these predators can be stopped, Thelwyn continued. But more than that, they've shown us what real strength looks like, not the brutish violence of raiders, but the disciplined power of those who fight to protect the innocent. Councillor Vaktoth of the hegemony delegation rose from his seat, his massive frame casting a shadow across several nearby representatives. The reptilian alien's voice was a threatening rumble that made the translation systems crackle. The council recognizes the so-called rescue of a minor mining colony, Vaktoth said, his words dripping with disdain. But let us not forget that these humans destroyed multiple vessels and captured prisoners without any legal authority. They acted as pirates and vigilantes, nothing more. Before Thelwyn could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. Clear, confident, and speaking perfect galactic standard without any need for translation. Councillor Vaktoth raises an interesting point about legal authority. Every head in the chamber turned toward the speaker. Admiral Sarah Chen walked down the central aisle in her full-dress uniform, flanked by 2 Marine guards in ceremonial armor. Behind them came a small delegation of Earth's finest diplomats, scientists, and military advisors. The humans had not been invited to this emergency session. They had simply appeared. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the Terran Defense Force and the United Earth Government, she announced, as she reached the central floor. And I'm here to address Councillor Vaktoth's concerns about legal authority. The chamber fell silent. In 300 years of Galactic Council history, no one had ever interrupted a session without formal recognition from the chair. You have no standing in this chamber, snapped Councillor Drakmor, the chamber's current rotating president. Earth is not a member of the Galactic Council and has no right to speak here. Chen smiled politely. Actually, Councillor, I believe you'll find that we do. She activated a holographic projector, and the chamber filled with legal documents, treaty texts, and precedent citations that scrolled through the air in perfect translation for every species present. According to Galactic Council Charter, Article 15, any civilization that provides military assistance to Council member species in defense against hostile forces gains automatic right of audience for a period of 1 standard year. The Zalathi are Council members. We provided military assistance. Therefore, we have standing. The legal documents continued to scroll, showing case precedents, historical examples, and detailed analysis that proved Earth's legal scholars had spent years studying galactic law. Councillor Drakmor stammered through his response. That provision hasn't been invoked in over 2 centuries. No, Chen agreed, because no one has been powerful enough to invoke it. But that's not all. The holographic display changed, showing detailed intelligence reports, communication intercepts, and strategic analysis. Our investigation into the Krugan operation at Kepler 442b uncovered evidence of a systematic campaign of aggression planned against 17 Council member systems. The hegemony was funding and directing these attacks as part of a larger strategy to destabilize the galactic government. The evidence was overwhelming. Communications between hegemony officials and Krugan war chiefs, payment records, weapons shipments, and strategic planning documents that laid out a campaign of conquest that would have devastated half the Council's membership. Vaktoth rose again, his voice now uncertain. These documents could be fabricated. Humans are unknown to us. How can we trust their intelligence gathering? Chen's smile turned predatory. An excellent question, Counselor. Perhaps you'd like to discuss it with War Chief Gorthak personally? The chamber's main doors opened, and a squad of human marines escorted a massive figure in restraints. Gorthak looked every inch the defeated warrior, his armor removed and replaced with prisoner garments. But his eyes still burned, with barely contained rage. War Chief, Chen addressed him directly. Would you please tell the Council who paid for your attack on Kepler 442b? Gorthak's response was a snarl in his native language, but the translation came through clearly. The hegemony will pay for this betrayal. The explosion of noise that followed nearly shattered the chamber's sound dampening systems. Half the delegates were shouting accusations at the hegemony representatives, while the other half demanded explanations for how humans had managed to capture and transport a Krugan warchief across half the galaxy without anyone noticing. Order, order, Drakmor shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down before speaking again. The evidence speaks for itself. The hegemony has been conducting an undeclared war against the Galactic Council, using mercenary proxies. Under Article 7 of the Charter, this constitutes an act of aggression requiring immediate defensive response. And I suppose Earth is volunteering to provide that response? Vaktoth sneered. Actually, we already have. The chamber fell silent again, and Chen activated a new holographic display showing real-time tactical information from across the galaxy. Operation Thunderbolt began 72 hours ago. Terran Defense Force units are currently engaged in simultaneous operations against hegemony military installations in 14 systems. Krugan mercenary bases in 9 additional systems have been neutralized. All civilian populations in the affected areas have been secured and are under human protection. The scope of the operation was staggering. Earth had deployed hundreds of ships across thousands of light years, coordinating attacks with precision that surpassed anything the Galactic Council had ever managed. This is an act of war, Vaktoth roared. The hegemony will not stand for this aggression. The hegemony is welcome to respond, Chen replied calmly. But I should point out that your main battle fleet is currently surrounded and demanding safe passage to neutral territory. She gestured, and the holographic display zoomed in on a star system where 30 hegemony warships sat motionless in space, completely surrounded by a human fleet that seemed to have materialized from nowhere. Admiral Harrison is waiting for your surrender, Chen continued. But she's prepared to demonstrate why resistance would be futile if necessary. The delegates stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The trapped hegemony fleet represented nearly half of their military power, and it had been neutralized without a shot being fired. Ambassador Thelwyn finally broke the silence. Admiral Chen, what does Earth want from the galaxy? Chen turned to address the full chamber, her voice carrying the authority of a species that had just redefined the balance of galactic power. Earth wants what any civilized species wants: peace, security, and the freedom to trade and explore without fear of predation. We want a galaxy where mining colonies can operate without being raided by mercenaries. We want shipping lanes free of pirates. We want a galactic council that can actually protect its members instead of just talking about it. She paused, letting her words sink in. But most importantly, we want the galaxy to understand that the age of predators is over. No longer will aggressive species be allowed to prey on the weak with impunity. Earth stands ready to defend any species that calls for aid, regardless of their size, wealth, or military power. Counselor Drakmor found his voice again. And what would Earth require in exchange for this protection? Nothing, Chen replied, causing gasps throughout the chamber. Earth doesn't seek tribute or territorial concessions. We're not interested in becoming galactic overlords, but we do expect compliance with certain basic principles. The holographic display changed again, showing a detailed document that Earth's diplomats had prepared. The Terran Accords, Chen announced. A new framework for galactic security based on the simple principle that aggression against civilian populations will not be tolerated. Any species that signs these accords agrees to peaceful resolution of disputes and commits to defensive cooperation against any power that violates these principles. Number 4. The Accords were comprehensive but fair. They established rules for engagement, protocols for dispute resolution, and mutual defense guarantees that would protect smaller species from predation while preserving the sovereignty of individual worlds. And if we refuse to sign? Vaktoth demanded. Chen's expression didn't change, but her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then, you continue as you are, and we respond accordingly. The choice is yours, but understand that Earth will no longer ignore acts of aggression against innocent populations. Over the next several hours, the debate continued, but the outcome was inevitable. Earth had demonstrated not just military superiority, but strategic planning, intelligence gathering, and political sophistication that far exceeded anything the galaxy had seen from a new species. One by one, the delegates began indicating their species' willingness to sign the Terran Accords. Even some hegemony client species distanced themselves from their former allies, recognizing that the balance of power had shifted permanently. By the end of the session, only the core hegemony systems remained opposed to the new order, and even they were reconsidering as reports came in of additional human operations across their territory. 6 months later, Commander Vex Tar stood in the rebuilt command center of Kepler 442b, watching the morning shift change with satisfaction. The colony was more prosperous than it had ever been, thanks to human engineering assistance and protection guarantees that had attracted new settlers and investment. Through the viewport, he could see the graceful curves of the UES Guardian, a human frigate that maintained a permanent patrol of the system. Other ships came and went regularly, human merchants, scientists, and diplomats who treated the Zealothi as valued partners rather than subjects. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command," his communications officer announced. The holographic image that appeared showed Admiral Chen, now promoted to head the Terran Defense Force's Galactic Operations Division. Her smile was warm and genuine as she addressed Vex Tar. "Commander, I wanted to personally update you on the latest developments. The last hegemony holdout systems signed the Accords yesterday. Officially, there's now peace throughout the known galaxy." Vex Tar felt a surge of emotion. "Admiral, I don't know how we can ever repay Earth for what you've done." "You already have," Chen replied. "You called for help when you needed it. You trusted us to do the right thing. And you've shown other species that humans can be relied upon as friends and allies. That trust is worth more than any payment." After the transmission ended, Vex Tar returned to his duties with a sense of profound gratitude. The galaxy was still vast and dangerous, filled with unknown threats and challenges, but for the first time in galactic history, those who preyed on the innocent faced organized opposition from a species that had the power to stop them and the will to use it. Earth's warriors had descended from the sky not as conquerors, but as protectors. And in doing so, they had fundamentally changed what it meant to be civilized in a universe full of predators. The age of humanity had begun.